Hi, today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2016, and I'm Joan Gremont. Lemetra Cousin is working the camera, and we're very happy to be interviewing you today, Sandy.
And I'm delighted to be
Sandy Gluckman. Sandy, tell us about when and why your family originally immigrated to South Africa. What can you tell us about their lives and their early years there?
So my dad came from Lithuania when he was a kid, actually. His father came before him, and his father came just on his own to get some money to try and bring the family out one at a time, and the first person he brought out was my dad. And my dad was 14 years old when he came to South Africa. And then he had fallen in love with a girl at school who was my mom. And just before the war broke out, literally the last ship ever to leave Lithuania, he got her out of the country and he brought her to South Africa.
Wow.
So he always says he saved her life, which he certainly did, because her entire family.
Okay. So tell us about your own life, growing up in South Africa, your family, your schooling, what was particularly memorable?
Well, I was really blessed. I had an amazing life in South Africa, and my parents were incredibly loving. They adored me. You know, if you think about it, I was really the first child that came out of a sort of Holocaust background, and so I was seen as the beginning of a whole new life, and I was spoiled, and they loved me very, very much. So I grew up in a suburb called Orange Grove, and went to Orange Grove primary school, and then went to Waverley Girls High School.
And that was in Johannesburg.
And that was in Johannesburg,
okay.
Correct. So I had good schooling, I had great friends, had close friends that lived as my neighbours. I just remember having a very carefree and at the same time cared for childhood.
And did you go to university?
Oh yes, I did. I certainly did. I went to university and I studied psychology. So I got a BA, a Bachelor of Arts. That was followed by an honours degree, which was followed by a master's degree, and then finally a PhD in psychology. And I don't know if it's of interest to anybody, but my PhD was in the use of both sides of the brain and how we use both sides of the brain.
Okay, so when and where were your children born?
So the children were born in Johannesburg as well, in a suburb which was called Glen Hazel. Wait, now let me think. The first child was actually born not in Glen Hazel. She was born in kind of Hillbrow area. And then my son was born in Glen Hazel.
So, how and why did you make the decision to leave South Africa? And how old were your children at the time?
Well, I decided to leave South Africa because at that time it was around close to sort of 1998. In fact, we came to America in 1998. So the decision-making took place around 1996, 1997, and the crime rate in Johannesburg was really high. So the crime was really bad in South Africa, and my husband and I decided, Merv and I decided that we didn't want to wait around for something bad to happen. And in fact, my son Gary had already come to the United States several years ahead of us. So it was an easy move in the sense that we knew where we were coming to, because Dallas, Gary was already living in Dallas. We had visited him year after year, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. And so it was almost like coming back to a second home, a place that we already knew.
And What was your family's reaction to your decision, and what was the scene like when you actually left South Africa?
So the family's reaction, I have a very small family. It was my mom and my dad and an aunt, my dad's sister, and her family. And so, and interestingly enough, my aunt's daughter had already gone to Dallas as well, Barbara Blecher. So the family, when we decided to go, Merv and I decided that we could not go without my mom and dad. They were 79, almost 80 years old, and we decided to take them with us. But interestingly enough, just before we, while we were preparing and thinking about leaving, my mom won the green card lottery. So what that really means is that her and my dad could come to the United States of America as legal citizens of the country. So they came with us, and so once again it was easy because I really wasn't leaving them or anybody really close behind.
Well, as you said, you were lucky to have your parents here and a son, a married son here. In what way were others helpful when you first arrived, and how did you find the community was in welcoming you as a new immigrant?
Well, as I said also, Gary being here first made things really so much easier for Merv and I. He helped us do all the things that you otherwise have to learn how to do, and he prepared the way for us, so that was great. And then we slowly began to make some friends. We wanted to make American friends as well as South African friends, and we've managed to do that, and that's been super. I did, when I arrived, I did find that I was pretty busy. I had a practice where I was working with leaders, organizational leaders, and that caused me to have to travel a great deal, go to different cities in the United States, in fact different places around the globe. And I'm saying that because there was a period of time when we arrived that I was so busy that I really didn't have enough time to connect with people, but we've managed to do that right now. So we love our circle of friends and some small family.
Good. Tell us more about what kind of work you've done since you've been here.
So since I've been here, I started off, as I said a moment ago, I worked in leadership development. And what that meant was working with the CEOs and the senior members of the organization in helping them to bring the employees on board, to be creative, to be involved, to be committed, to make more money, basically. And I developed a particular program. I wrote a book called Who's in the Driver's Seat, and that, in fact, got me work, as I said, around the globe. I've worked in pretty much the countries around the globe in leadership. And then, when my mom and dad passed, I, in fact, towards the end of their lives, my dad had severe congenital heart failure, and my mom had Alzheimer's. And towards the end of their lives, I could not travel that much, and so I was here pretty much a lot, and I kind of stepped back from the work situation. They were fantastic to me, and I was really so blessed to be able to be with them all the way through to the end of their lives and take care of them, hopefully, in the way that they took care of me. And then when they passed, I asked myself, what do I really want to do? You know, what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And looking back on my career, I realized that the work I love doing the most is working with children and with family, particularly children who have got learning and behavior and mood challenges. And that's what I do right now. I help them to overcome that, and I help them to overcome these challenges without drugs.
Wonderful. Tell us about your introduction to the Dallas Jewish community. How did it compare to your experience in South Africa, and how involved did you get in congregations?
So it's again pretty much through Gary that we got involved with the Chabad Shul, and Rabbi Block is an amazing man, wonderful rabbi. Very different, of course, to the way we were used to doing things in South Africa. In some ways, similar in other ways. We're very, very Jewish. We're very, very proud of being Jewish. We are not very religious, put it that way. And so, we're always celebrating the high holidays, but we don't go to shul on a regular basis.
Okay. And how important was Israel to you growing up in South Africa, and is it still that important to you today?
I love that question because Israel was always immensely important in my home. And it was a topic of discussion with my mom and my dad. They were just so proud of our Israel, and it was something that we felt very, very strongly about the homeland. Of course, we went to visit many times, and now I have a brother who has lives in Israel now for, I'm thinking, about 46 years.
Wow.
He lives in Haifa, and we visit with him every single year. So yes, Israel is a very strong part of my identity, and we think a lot about it at the moment.
Okay. And do you still have family in South Africa? A close family?
I have my late dad's sister still there, and that's all.
Do you miss anything about your life in South Africa, and have you returned to visit, and how do you feel when you go back to visit?
I don't miss South Africa at all. Not in the least. I do miss people there. I miss my very close friends. I miss Murph's kids there, and but other than that, no. If I didn't have to go back to South Africa, I would never go back.
And do you think Dallas has been a good choice for you? And how do you feel about the city?
I totally love Dallas. I love Dallas. Maybe because of the contrast between South Africa and that horrible crime and the sort of fear that we went to bed with and we went through the day with. We literally were fearful all the time. And so when you think about Dallas, you just think about how friendly everyone is and how clean everything is, how organized. I must say, I feel very blessed to be in Dallas. I know it's perhaps for some people not the most exciting city of the world, but it's my city and I love it.
And are you a US citizen?
Yes.
And do you consider yourself an American, and what does it mean to you?
Sure, I do consider myself an American. I do a lot of public speaking, and of course when I stand up and people hear my accent, I play with it a little bit with the audience in the beginning. So I ask them, so where do you think I come from? And eventually they'll discover it's South Africa. And I tell them, well, guess what that makes me? I'm an American citizen, but I'm from South Africa, so I'm an African American. And yes, not sure if I remember the rest of your question.
No, I said, are you happy to be
very
American?
Proud to be an American citizen.
Tell us about your children, your grandchildren. You haven't told us anything about the family.
So yeah, it's a difficult topic for me, but I somehow think that if anyone's ever going to watch this, and I'll make sure my grandchildren do, and hopefully I'll still be here for my great-grandchildren. My parents were here for great-grandchildren, so I'd like them to know that I had a daughter, and a most magnificent, beautiful child, inside and outside, and she just died suddenly. One day she was there, and the next day she was gone from meningitis. And that was before we immigrated to Dallas. So there's a hole in my heart. There always will be. But I think it's probably important for people to know that her name was Cheryl, and her and I were particularly close.
Mm-hmm.
So I miss her every single minute of every single day.
And Gary is here, your son.
And Gary's here.
And how many children does he have?
And Gary has 2 boys. He has a 17-year-old at the moment, 17, and he's Justin, and a bar mitzvah boy who just had a bar mitzvah a few weeks ago, and his name is Aiden. And they live literally 3 minutes away from us, which is also so wonderful. I'm so lucky to have them so close, because I know that other parents don't have their families so close. And I know, for example, Merv, who is my second husband, and his family are not round the corner.
Right.
We have kids his daughter's in South Africa, and she has 3 children, and a son in Israel who has 3 children. So we do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, you do. All right, thank you, Sandy. Unless there's anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing this.
Okay.
So, for those of you who are watching this, in case you want to do a family tree, I just remembered that I forgot to tell you the names of my mom and dad. So, my mom was Ella, and my dad was Eli, and their last name was Sament, Sament. And my mom was originally Ella Cristal, Kristal, and my dad was Eli Zamentisik. But when they came to South Africa, the name was reduced to Zament, Sament, instead of Zamentisik. So, in case you want to do a family tree, there's some information for you.
Thank you.
And my dad, in fact, did have another brother. His name was Sydney. So when he and my grandfather collected enough money, they brought my auntie Hannah out, and a brother called Uncle Sydney. And Uncle Sydney became one of the most famous neurologists in the United States of America.